Ryan, tomorrow, big superhero movie. Pre two more big superhero movies, actually, because we're going to get Spider-Man and we're going to get Eternals. And we had Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
This one is Venom. Let there be carnage. We saw it yesterday. I wrote a review and posted it, and you wrote a review and posted it, and I've read yours, and I'm fairly certain you haven't read mine. We differ slightly. Slightly. I'm not going to say a lot, but we do differ slightly.
Well, I mean, if you probably like the film, and that would be different.
That would be different. Well, you don't hate the film. You just
no,
like the film.
No.
So
yeah, correct.
No.
Correct.
Okay. Well. All right. Well, let's back up. Let's. How did we get here? We got here with $800 million in box office.
Yeah.
From Venom, which we pretty much agreed is not a great film at all.
It's garbage.
You think it's hot garbage. I think it's kind of stinky garbage. But it made $800 million, and Tom Hardy wanted to make a sequel. Therefore, we get a sequel. Now, we get a director change.
Yes.
From Ruben Fleischer, who did Zombieland Double Tap, as well as the first Venom. We get Andy Serkis, who I didn't watch Mowgli, and I don't really pay attention a lot of times to who actors like Andy Serkis, when they go on to direct. I don't really pay attention until they direct something that I have to pay attention to. So I haven't paid attention to his projects till now. Tom Hardy's back as Eddie Brock and voicing Venom. And it's another buddy film, buddy detective journalist type film, not a buddy cop film. What about it don't you like? How about that? Or what about it do you like? How about that? We'll start that. That'll be easier. What do you like about Let There Be?
Of this one, okay. Well,
yeah.
I to me, these should be horror movies. And so there are moments in this film that are akin to a horror film.
Sure.
Than before.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, generally speaking, this film is, at least in my mind, better in almost every regard than the first one.
Okay.
The problem that I have is that I don't know that I would turn Venom and Carnage and all these things into buddy cop films. I think I would try to do something a little different. Probably, I mean, this. I guess I just never really considered the characters to be goofy, and that's kind of they definitely make Venom goofy.
Yes,
and that's not a particular. I guess that's just not how I would approach the work.
Okay.
But the problem being is, so do you completely go away from what the first film was?
Sure.
Or do you, because there were people who thought the best part of the first Venom was the buddy cop sort of aspect. I was not one of those people, obviously,
No.
but there were people who said that, and so they emphasized that in this one, which again, as I said, is a choice that I disagree with or don't appreciate, or just not my cup of tea, I guess, is what I think I said in my review. So, I was kind of doomed to never like this film in the first place.
That's okay.
Yeah,
no, I hear you. Now, I think that the buddy cop aspect of the first film was, you're right. Venom should be a darker character, and in the first film, he actually almost was a darker character because there was a lot more killing going on. he ate a lot of people in the first film compared to this one. But I think Andy Serkis kind of streamlined that wacky buddy comedy stuff enough to where it's not quite as I said it's not quite as slapsticky.
Yeah.
And it's well, not slapsticky. It's less scattershot. It's a very focused buddy comedy kind of scenes in amongst all the other stuff. Now, I agree that there are parts of this film that play like a horror movie, much like parts of New Mutants, a goodly portion of it.
Yeah.
Played like a horror movie that could have worked if they've committed. I agree with that. I agree that Venom should be darker and verging into that realm tone more than we get. But I think they're kind of locked into having to keep at least some semblance of that and some remnant of that because it works for $800 million. And we've discussed how studios do things. $800 million says a lot. So I think Serkis, being a physical performer, I think that helped him work those Venom Eddie scenes a little bit in his head, and it came out in his direction to help kind of focus those down, bring them in a little bit and make that kind of work. I had forgotten or not realized at all that Tom Hardy is Venom's voice.
Yeah.
Which actually makes the love-hate relationship between the two just work that much better. Because it's literally Tom Hardy hating on himself. So that kind of, I think that makes it work because he is literally both sides of the argument in every argument they have. I like, we get Michelle Williams.
Not a lot.
No, not a lot. And here and ready, this is the misogynistic comment for this podcast. She's in it, and at least we get girl Venom again. And I wish we'd have gotten more Michelle Williams, but at least we got girl Venom for 8 seconds. But also that worked in the first movie when she was Venom. That segment worked, not just because girl Venom, but that actually worked. So it would have been nice to see her involved more in the film again, because her and Venom have a chemistry and an interplay that works really well too. So
it's a different personality, sort of.
Right, but so it's weird. That's almost a brother sister thing, which is really it was really funny in the first movie. I thought that was great, and I kind of missed that this time. Woody Harrelson plays a psychopath.
Yeah,
I know. Go ahead.
I really like Woody Harrelson. He's a bizarre interview and kind of a weird guy, and right. I like him.
Sure.
But I'm tired of him getting the same role.
Yeah.
With various shades of crazy.
Right.
It's just like, I guess it just felt so cliche, at this point.
I said that Cletus Cassidy, who is the guy that he's playing, serial killer. He's obviously, they just hint at him in the post-credit scene in the first film. So all the comic book people are like, oh, it's this, and this is how he's going to be. I don't know if that's how he's going to be, but in this, even though they try to, he's still fairly two-dimensional as a character in this. But at least Woody Harrelson knows how to embrace that, and so he injects enough psychotic into it. Psychotic heft is the phrase I used to at least make that character a little more compelling than he would be maybe with another actor. Even though it's still a basic character type, but it's Woody doing it, and Woody can bring a little extra to that I think helps a lot. So ironically for me in this film, I think the weakest part of this film is Carnage.
You're not wrong there.
Is that he's there. We see how he comes into being, but we don't necessarily, we're never told the why or the how behind the how, I guess. Because we understand how he gets into Cletus, but I don't understand. The relationship does not work in the generation, the gestation of Carnage, if you will, especially when they throw out father son. You know, it's like, but that's not the relationship Venom implies when he first sees him. Oh, that's a red one. And so that relationship is blurred. So Carnage winds up being the weakest part of that. At least in the first film, Riot was another full symbiote.
Sure.
In another megalomaniac. So that made sense. And in this one, that is the part of the story that's the weakest. So consequently, Carnage is just there. Now, I do appreciate that they did learn from the first film that you can't just have a CGI blobfest as a final battle. Instead, they both basically kept humanoid form for the fight, which makes the fight easier to track.
Well,
there's still a lot of tentacles, but it wasn't just this big, weird, oil and water fluid mess that they had at the end of the first one. So, they did learn that. I mean, it's not a fight if you can't see who's fighting.
Yeah.
So no matter what else you think, at least this is clearly a fight between two individuals.
Between Silly String and
Silly String. They do shoot, but so does Spider-Man. So
it's all Silly String to me. You've got black Silly String and red Silly String, and they're being shot at each other.
Right, but at least they're coming from human people. So the dynamic works a little better. So I was personally appreciative of that.
Well, and like I said, I mean, I think they got everything better in this film.
Yeah.
I honestly, I do feel like everything got better. But again, the approach to it was so, I guess, the caliber of the actors involved suggested a different trajectory. Let me put it that way. For the first film, and I think that was part of what made it so disappointing was this thought of, oh, you've got people who don't necessarily typically do action films,
right?
And they're in this, and I guess I wanted it to be something it never was going to be, and so this film was never going to be, although I mean it could have been, and I guess maybe you could have somehow figured out a way to keep a little bit of the goofiness, but not overwhelm it. But I don't know.
Yeah. So this film clocks in at I called it an efficient 90 minutes.
Yeah, it's very quick.
You can't really cut anything. You could add stuff, but I think it would wind up being minor unless you really wanted to do some deep dive.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
that. So I had to go with efficient. It's an efficient 90 minutes. Could it be, $1:45, $1:50? Sure. But then you're going to get into a lot of the Carnage logistics. You're going to do a lot more of the dark stuff. But I don't know that it substantially, quote unquote, improves the movie.
Well, I think if there's one area they could have done more with it is the relationship between our bad guys, our bad couple,
right?
Where we're only kind of given a sliver of what's going on. I could have gone for more in the asylum. I could have gone for, there's various things that I think they could have done something with, but did they need to?
They could have done a 5 to 7 minutes opening segment in the I want to say orphanage, but I don't really think it was an orphanage.
Well, the home for
the home for troubled where Woody Harrelson's Cletus and Francis meet. Naomi Harris. Thank you. That's not Watts. That's where my brain goes automatically.
Yeah,
Naomi Harris.
because I think that I mean, I think that could have improved. And could have, as you pointed out, been a more natural way of bringing in some of the darker aspects. Because I mean, it's kind of weird that like we have a serial killer who's kind of a goofy comedic character. I don't know. It's just kind of.
That's fine line between madness and genius.
Yeah. Well, and anyway.
Yeah. I mean,
I mean, so, if you liked the first one, or if you didn't mind the direction the first one was heading in, I don't see why you wouldn't like this one.
Yeah.
It's better in every way that I could have hoped it would be. But for me, it just wasn't, the film was never going to be for me.
Right.
And I have to accept that.
Okay. So yes, I liked it more than you did. I still, God help me, probably still like New Mutants better than this. But the New Mutants is just a weird duck, so it's hard for me to compare the two.
Sure.
Compare that to anything.
But the thing I struggle with is, how in the world does this connect to the Marvel Cinematic Universe? Because it does.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So in the first movie, there was no Spider-Man. There was no mention of Spider-Man. They completely retconned the Venom origin, right?
Correct.
So it's implied in the post-credit scene in Venom that it ties to Homecoming with the appearance of Michael Keaton's character in prison. So that is implied but never made explicit. In this film, I had to go back and redact the original review because I said things. So now there's redacted in the new post for this. But I think that they were not in the Tom Holland Homecoming universe originally. I believe Sony, between Spider-Man now and Venom, is, because in association with Marvel, it's right up front, I believe they're making a play, for many reasons that will become obvious if you see this movie, to brush up and associate with Phase 4. And I know. See, but that leads me to the inevitable question, because a couple days before we saw this, there was a social media blurb that Jared Leto had congratulated Venom. He'd made a comment about Venom. So everyone was like, oh my God, is Jared Leto in Venom? Which, of course, would lead you to Morbius.
Yes.
Which is still out there, as I pointed out in our panel that there's no proof that we had. Is this right now, is this orphan film that doesn't really have a home? But in light of Venom and No Way Home and Doctor Strange and What If and this, it is entirely possible that Morbius is not an orphan film, or is in the process of becoming a not orphan film, either just through its placement or through reshoots and recuts and bonus stuff. So there's more of that out there. And so I'll be interested to see where that goes if we ever actually get to see Morbius, which, of course, I don't think was going to do well. But now it may, simply because of what it implies.
Maybe.
Which we will know, which I am convinced we will know after No Way Home, which I have still not watched the trailer for. I am so proud of myself. So I actually don't know what's in the trailer, and I could be completely talking out my butthole. And there might be things in the trailer that disprove everything I just said. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
I don't really know either.
But if acting in a vacuum, like in the olden days when we didn't have all of this information floating out there at our fingertips, where you had to use your brain, that's where I'm at in the Phase 4 multiverse. Where do things fit? So I'll be interested to see how things fit. Plus Eternals, we have no idea what the Eternals is going to do.
Oh.
So yeah, it's just it's a mess that I hope they clean up, at least to some degree. Yeah, but no, I did like this more than you. It's still not a great film. I'm at like a 6 just because I think because of the horror elements, those darker moments. Like I said, I think Andy Serkis focused the funny a little better to allow the darker stuff to play better. And if there's, God forbid, there's a Venom 3, maybe we'll get more dark. With just moments of whatever. And we did get one F-bomb. I caught it and counted it just for you because it's a PG.
Yeah.
We got one.
And it was kind of dumb.
Yeah,
but anyway.
Sort of. It was kind of dumb. But I was like, oh, look, it is PG-13. We get one. So,
and I can't, and I'm not usually but I can't help but wonder if Venom would not play better in an R-rated film.
Something not as crass as Deadpool, but just something a little more free.
Well, I'm thinking more of a violent sort of aspect because it just seems like for a lot of flying sharp tentacles and things, there's
right.
I don't know. It feels like it's toned down in a way that doesn't actually fit the characters.
Right.
And that's more of the, I'm not you don't necessarily have to make R-rated movies or
right.
That I don't necessarily think anything rated R is going to be better than anything rated PG-13, but
There's
do think
subject matter.
And there are things,
right.
That this might play a little better if, and again, it's because I guess I prefer the horror aspect of this. And I mean, there's some pretty creepy stuff you could do.
Oh yeah.
With this character.
And
these
with the background
characters
and those two situations. Yeah.
So, and I guess there's just part of me that is kind of disappointed we keep getting kind of teased that we're going to get a superhero horror film, and it keeps not actually happening.
Right.
So I
get it. You don't want them to make an R-rated movie. You just don't want them to be focused on making a PG-13 movie.
Correct.
See, and there is a difference.
Just make your movie.
And what we've been saying that for a long time. If you make your movie, the odds are it's going to be better than the movie that you are thinking about having to try to tick the boxes. So make your movie and see where it falls, and let the audience decide. I completely 100% agree.
So I just I mean it just feels like, I mean, if you feel like Venom is going to say these things,
let him say these things.
Yeah, well then, if that's his character, that's his character. Rather than but maybe they'll do something crazy and they'll have the Spider-Verse and the Deadpool verse hook up and keep everything else separate. I don't know, but
I don't know. That would be interesting if Tom Holland was the only crossover between the two. Some weird multiverse funnel point. So
I don't want to go into the connection in this, but it felt like, oh well, that wasn't really driven by a narrative, that was driven by a corporate executive's email that said we have to do this.
Yeah,
even if it doesn't make sense, we have to do this. And at the moment, and it might eventually make sense, but at the moment
it does not.
It makes absolutely no sense.
Again, which is why I said I'm wondering if they're not doing some tweaking on Morbius.
Yeah.
Now, so I don't know. I would be interested to hear how that all plays out. But we'll see how that goes. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is a very long way around saying Ryan didn't enjoy Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and I was okay with it. It's definitely better than the first. If you like the first, you'll like the second. If you were ambivalent about the first, you'll probably be ambivalent or slightly positive on the second. I do think that Andy Serkis made a huge difference.
No, I think
in the director's chair.
And and initially it was like, Andy, you don't have to constantly be moving the camera. You could stop moving the camera at some point. If you watch like the first few scenes, the camera is constantly moving, and it's kind of interesting, but it's also like, I don't want to know you're here, Andy.
Right.
Andy,
fly on the wall. Yeah.
Let me watch a movie. But there's interesting set design. No, and I think he is a talented person, and I think that absolutely, I think that he has a future in directing a lot of things, and there's nothing in this film to suggest that he's not a good director. I just didn't like what he was given to work with, really.
Yeah. But I think he did elevate it over what was. So that's, at that much, I think it's clear.
Well, it's a smarter script. It's better directed. Again, everything about this is better than the original. So, take that, whatever your opinion of the original is, and then add a plus to it. And that's what
there you go. Wherever you started it, you have to go up. It doesn't go down for anybody. So there you go. Next week we have The Last Duel. We're going to be screening. Our review for Lamb from A24 will be dropping Monday morning. We already have that in the can for you. It's nice to have movies to watch again. In the theater.
This week was pretty crazy for us.
That was 3 straight days of big good movies. So it was nice, and we're gonna have Dune, we're gonna have Ghostbusters, we're gonna have Eternals, we're gonna have Spider-Man. And that's just the big tentpole type movies.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. So
on the animated side, Ron's Gone Wrong should be coming soon, so we should be seeing that. If you've got kids, that looks entertaining, in the vein of Big Hero 6, silliness, not superhero-ness. But there's some good stuff coming, and it is a nice place to be if you're a movie fan right now. So yes, Ryan and I are living large. So stay tuned for all of that. Till we get back to you on that stuff, stay safe. Don't forget to like us, follow us on social media at BS Movie Podcast. You know all that already. And until we talk to you again, I am Mark. That is Ryan. Bye, Ryan.
See you guys.
And we'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.